Good afternoon to you all, and happy to be here with you. In this session and the following sessions, we'll be discussing the what, the why, and more importantly, the how. And in session two, we'll cover change management, team-based care, and quality improvement. These are some key topics that you need to know more about before you embark on your primary care transformation journey. So here is a crosswalk of the different primary care functions, the requirements, and of course, the different sessions where they will be discussed or presented or spoken more about. So pay attention if you have one of these that you want to hear more about today or all of them. So the objectives today, I would like you guys to walk away with the following. First of all, to understand the process of change and where you are with change, understanding team-based care and structure in MDPCP and the benefits of it, and understanding quality improvement process. We are going to discuss the PDSA methodology, workflows, people, process, and technology. I will start this off with one of my favorite quotes, which says, "It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will succeed, but those who can best manage change." So when we talk about change, we actually mean change for the better. That means to improve. So if we should redefine this, it would be improvement management. And this is the application of a structured process and set of tools for leading the people side of change to achieve a desired outcome. Two key requirements that you should keep in mind to succeed is a leadership that enables change within your practice, a do as I do type of leadership approach. And the second is a strategic capability designed to increase the change capacity and responsiveness. Do you have enough resources? Do you have enough training? Do you have enough support? And as Dr. Haft just mentioned, you have more than enough support in this program. So why change management? You are 6 times more likely to succeed with your change initiative if you understand how people deal with change. So you have to ensure that primary care providers and the practice staff stay engaged to increase the adoption rate of the change and also achieve optimal resource utilization and proficiency. So this is sort of like an icebreaker. And let me remind us that change is a journey. And it will be interesting to see how different this is, when you think about each care team member on your team and in your practice. So on the vertical axis, you can see morale, energy, and performance. And on the vertical axis is over time. So you see how this fluctuates over time. So when change is first announced, you wonder, how can I cope with this change? And you're kind of anxious about it. And next thing you become glad, you're excited, something new, something fresh. But no sooner than you are, you're afraid about the implication of this. How does this impact me? And at this juncture, you think of two things that could happen, or you to go either one of those ways. First of all, you're in denial that this will never, come to fruition, or you feel quite threatened about how this, changes your position in the practice, the things you have to now start being responsible for, and things like that. Shortly after, you move on to feel some kind of guilt. What exactly did we collectively do to bring upon this change? Again, at this junction, you either do one of two things. You become disillusioned, like, I'm off, I'm going to find another job. Or you feel quite down about it, about all the things you need to kind of figure out, and start over. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because here you have one of two things you can do. You either choose to be hostile and sabotage every single effort, or you do the right thing and gradually accept that this is for the good, the greater good, and you try to move forward. So we are all in different stages of this, and this will open up our first poll just to feel the pulse and see what stage of change you're in. Again, remember the polls are all anonymous, so feel free to just be a good sport and select one of those 5 options. Angelica, do we have any results yet?
Yes, I see people are still voting, so
Okay,
if you can wrap it
sure.
up in about 5 seconds, we'll close the polls. Okay, so I'm closing the poll now.
Awesome. Wow. 63%. Well, thank you so much. This is your first year here for those who just started and you're accepting, you're moving forward. Now, for the 29% that are anxious and happy, we will hope to change that by the end of this training academy because we are going to go next into how you're supposed to deal and manage with things like this because those anxiety and happiness, depending on which one you are, which one you are in now, you have still more stages, fear, threat, guilt, and disillusion to confront or coming right in front of you. So we will talk about steps and things you need to do to deal with that. And part of that is being aware. Why are you doing this? Knowing more about what you're doing, which could also be part of the reason of the anxiety. Thank you for your participation with that poll. Next slide. So implementing change. So first things you have to do are prepare for the change, you have to manage the change, and you have to reinforce the change. So understand that when you're preparing for change that you have to know the steps that every single practice staff is going to go through. They have to be aware about what they're doing, understand why, they have to decide that they will do it, and then they have to focus on gaining the knowledge, like attending trainings and working with uh, their peers to have peer-to-peer learning, and then they feel they have the ability to do the work, and then you reinforce that as you go along. So we're hoping that for those of you who are in this particular training, that you can get some more awareness, make up your mind about things you're going to do differently after this training, and of course, based on the knowledge that you've gained. So how do you manage change? Resistance. So folks normally resist change because, first of all, is an organizational culture that has been in the past where it's the flavor of the month, it didn't work as it's supposed to, and it always change saturation. It's always something changing. It could also be from a personal context where I'm not aware of what we're doing, so that's why I am resisting the change, or it's going to affect me professionally, either with my career or just my family life. So try to get to the bottom of what could be the reason for the resistance to change. Now, these are a few ways that you can manage that resistance. Make sure you communicate and engage your team members. Listen and understand people's point of view. Remove any barriers they may have. Create hope that there's something great coming with all this work that they're putting in. Make sure you also show that there's a benefit in a real tangible way. Make a personal appeal. Some folks already trust each other, and if you're asked by your care team member to support with an initiative, normally you do get that support. Make sure you provide simple and clear consequences and incentives. If I don't do this, what would happen? And once people are clear about the consequences and incentives, you definitely get more buy-in with your team. So we also have to remember how we engage our patients, because they're also going to go through their own change, having new members on the care team from the CTO, vendors, or whatnot, and now with COVID-19. So let's know that every encounter we have with our patients counts. So knowing how to engage and get the best out of that communication matters. There was already a webinar that happened, I believe, earlier today or sometime this week on motivation interviewing. So again, this is just a brief overview again. Every single member in your care team should be very aware, astute as to how to engage your patients, to encourage them to make more decisions on their healthcare delivery. And you can serve as a guide to clarify their strengths, their aspirations, listen to their concerns, boost their confidence in their ability to change, and definitely collaborate with them as they plan to achieve better healthcare outcomes for themselves. An uninformed patient could be a very concerning thing to deal with. You have different barriers that could lead to an uninformed patient and definitely adverse effects that does impact the patient's healthcare outcomes. So this is why knowing how to best communicate with your patient matters. Let's talk a little bit about one technique that I think I find very helpful, and it's called the OARS technique. You start off with an open-ended question. Make sure you encourage the patients to do most of the talking and you do most of the listening. Affirm, acknowledge them when they say something positive. You know, I took my meds like I should today. I'm cutting down on my carbs if I am a diabetic patient. And then you do some reflective listening. This shows that you have an interest and you have respect for what it is that they have to say. You also have to make sure that when you summarize what you've heard from the patient say, that you are trying to reinforce what has been said during the encounter. And I always like to end this particular conversation with my favorite quote from Maya Angelou that says, people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So always keep that in mind as you engage your patients, because the more they trust you, the more they feel they're heard, the more they will be willing to participate in their care. And that's very important in this program. The next we want to touch on is the topic we want to touch on is team-based care. So with MDPCP, we cannot do it without a team. It takes a village, right? So think of the principles here that you must have in your care team. First of all, you have to have shared goals. With shared goals, you should be clear about everybody understanding what is in this for me as an individual care team member, but also what is in this for the patients and their families. Make sure that their needs are also part of your priorities as you come up with the care plan for your patients. Set clear roles. Let's know who is responsible for what, so that everyone feels that there's a clear expectation about their functions, responsibilities, and accountabilities. Try to build trust. Do a lot of team building exercise so that you can build trust among the team, because you would need that in a team-based care setting. Effective communication. This means that you should prioritize and continuously refine how you communicate to one another. Just as your patient needs good motivational interviewing communication techniques, so do your peers. So make sure you practice the same things like reflective listening, the open-ended question, again, because you really want to know where your care team members are coming from, and that would make for a better and more cohesive team. And lastly, you want to also focus on measurable processes and outcomes, and make sure that everybody is aware on what those are, so that as you advance in your care transformation journey, everyone can identify when we're being successful, when things are kind of not going in the right direction, and how you can course correct. Here's a summary of the benefits of team-based care. As you all know, it does benefit the team where we can share, divide and conquer, and support one another, but also your patients feel that they are more supported because you do have different care team members who support them with different aspects of their healthcare. Since you have been in the program, I'm sure you've been trying to figure out the best staff mix for your staffing model. Some of you already have care team members in the practice. For those of you who have CTOs, you have some of your practice staff that are CTOs, and also some that are vendors. Regardless of the staff mix you have, always remember the patient should see the team as one cohesive unit. Everybody else is here to help you. The practice to take care of your patients. So when you're reviewing responsibilities, who is doing what, always think about how this works as a cohesive unit. This is an illustration from AHRQ white paper. A great experts were part of it, including my friend Judith Schaefer. And it just shows that within a care team, as you can see here, your patients actually are closer to one member of the care team or the other. And it just says you should leverage what you have. It doesn't matter who the patient actually is more comfortable with, because that care team member can help build that relationship over time where the patient feels more comfortable and therefore feels that they are supported by the team regardless of your staff mix. So here are some team care team roles that you may have in your practice, depending on how large or small your practice is. You have the primary care team, the immediate primary care team, and then you have the extended team, and it could be any combination of these different roles. So let's go to our next goal. And it's just a quick yes or no. Do you feel that you are currently maximizing the benefits of your team-based care structure in your practice?
Great. We'll give it about 10 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. All right, closing the poll now.
Awesome. So thank you for your feedback. It's truly helpful to gauge where you all are, and for the PMO to identify the next series of training or resources that will help prepare you for your care transformation journey. So 59% of you feel good about where you are with your team-based structure, and 41% do not. So again, please make sure you keep working at it. Reach out to your CTO and your practice coach to support as needed. But great work. Next slide. So we'll touch on quality improvement really quickly. You have to have quality improvement as part of your culture. So how do you think about improving or doing things better on a daily basis? How are you consistently asking or continuously asking yourself, how can you do something better? How can you be more efficient? How can you be more timely in your approach with addressing your patients' care needs? Why are we doing this? Because it feeds into the overarching goal of the MDPCP program, right? So that we improve the quality of the care for our patients, and therefore we can reduce the avoidable hospitalizations and ED visits, and therefore cost, and more importantly, improve the patient experience and the healthcare outcomes. So to establish a continuous quality improvement strategy in your practice, you have to start with choosing a formal model. We are promoting a PDSA because it's simple. And then you also, and has been proven to yield good results, you want to also establish and monitor measures. You want to ensure that all practice staff understand what these measures are. You want to ensure you get the buy-in and the feedback and the voice of your patients involved and included, so that you can have a process or quality improvement process that they can also be part of. And then you should optimize your use of your EHR as well as health IT and beyond. As you've already heard, Chris has more than enough support for us in terms of how we can leverage technology. So a little bit about PDSA. I won't go into too much detail. You have these in your handout. You have a template as well as a simple example of how you can use it. But PDSA models are used to enable you to test out change at a small scale. And you first start with the P, which is planning. You plan by identifying the team and answering the 3 questions. What are you trying to accomplish? Set the aims. How do you know that this change is an improvement? You establish measures, interim and final outcomes. And the third question is, what changes can we make that will result in an improvement? So you have to select the change initiative that you're going to start with. Then you actually do it. You test the change. You collect the data, and then you study it over time, summarize the lessons learned, and then you act. Be mindful that when you act, the decision you could make would be, well, you know what, I want to test this again, because the first time we did it, I don't think it worked out quite fine. So you can have a series of, 3, 4 small tests of change before you actually decide to go ahead and implement the change. Make sure you're confident that you have crossed your T's and dot your I's, meaning that you have identified what you could do better before you roll it out across the practice and decided this is what you're going to do for all your patients. So the last poll for this session is to identify the 3 questions that you should ask when planning for a PDSA test. For those who are listening, is it A, B, or C?
In about 10 seconds, we'll close the poll.
Okay, majority of you got it, is B, so good. So for those who selected A or C, what I'll do is I'll go back to that slide and let's look at it one more time. But at least you heard something and everybody got it, that you have to first of all set your aims. So that's good that you at least remember that piece. Let's see if we can go back. There we go. So again, with the PDSA model, you plan first, you identify the team, you answer the 3 key questions, set the aims, what are we trying to accomplish? How do we know we have accomplished it? So that means we have to identify what success looks like. Does it mean we achieve 95% empanelment? Does it mean that we're able to provide LCM, longitudinal care management, for 5% of our beneficiaries? Whatever those measures are, you want to test at a point in time, identify those. The third is that now you have to select an initiative that answers the question of what the changes can be that would result in the improvement that you're looking for. And then the next step is to do it, test the change, and then you study it, and then you act. So hope that was a good refresher for you. So as a session recap, we discussed change management, the stages, phases of change, how you should manage resistance to change amongst the team, and how you should communicate better with your patients. We also discussed team-based care, the principles and benefits of team-based care, the different team-based structures, especially as it is in the MDPCP program, and care team roles. And lastly, we looked at quality improvement, having that as a transformational culture, establishing a continuous quality improvement strategy, and the PDSA methodology. Again, the template is in your handouts, so you can have something to use to actually practice or implement this. So I will just go over quickly the patient journey framework. So when we come back from the break, you would be able to kind of follow through. Again, if you look in your handouts, you see the patient journey framework. It's about 2-3 pages long, I believe. So what is there is really looking at the work you do on a daily basis, and how do we have MDPCP as sort of an overlay on the work you do, because we want to inform you that most of the work you already do. So MDPCP is actually just here to enhance and improve the way you deliver care to your patients. So starting off with the second column, it will identify some process steps that occurs either before, during, or after the patient's office or virtual visit. The fourth column shows the number of different care team roles that you may have in your practice, and who's involved in each step, potentially could be involved in each step. The last the last two columns look at technology and tools that you apply for each of those steps. And last, we want you to always remember the patient experience, and that's on the third column. Based on the way that you execute the work you do on a daily basis, your care delivery towards your patients, what do they feel? How do they receive it? That's important to keep in mind. So I'll hand it off to Angelica, and I'll be here at the end of the presentation to answer any questions in this particular areas that we just discussed. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Okeke, for that session. So really quick before we break, I wanted to address some of the concerns or issues that folks are having with downloading some of the handouts. Please bear with us. We'll try to re-upload the handouts, so that might be able to resolve the issue that you're having with being able to download that. As a backup plan, we will also include the handouts and materials in the follow-up email as well, so that you have that. So right now it's about 1:55. We'll break for 10 minutes. So if everybody can come back at 1:05, and we'll begin with the rest of the training sessions. Thank you.